we still have.
I think the
there's still our games
is
that
the
are there.
mentality that they're gonna go ahead and potentially like have these fuckers pay $70 for these games that we get for free. It shouldn't be a crying thing for us. It's say, haha, look at you, you clown. You have no games. You have to be fed by Xbox, and you're paying full price, and you're funding our Game Pass. It is just mind blowing the situation that could be taking place and that has taken place, because listen, Sea of Thieves didn't sell much, but that was a whole other million in sales that PlayStation wished that like Concord had done, or Lego Ho, dare I say, that it didn't hit 1 million in sales. So
1 million by itself is small. Like when you look at it for the game sales, but when it's added,
Sea of Thieves, old ass
2017,
game.
that's crazy. So when you add that mil to like the other 40 mils, like, oh, all right, 44 mil now, dope. You know what I'm saying? Like it hits different, right? It's a different beast.
Alright everybody, welcome back to another Xvault Gaming video. Xvault here, and yes, today we're going to go over your next dose of the Salty Batch files, and of course we're going to start off with some great coping mechanisms because that's in another phase that they're in at this point in time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump to it. Alright, so like I said, what we're going to do is get right to the meat of the matter here, and starting off we got Boom, yes, Boomstick himself reposting some additional fuel to his own fire here. As you can see, this is the future of PlayStation and a major talking point on today's new episode of Xvlog Live blah blah blah, and has all that stuff there. Well, he obviously is reposting, requoting, whatever, for Snap Blast Play, stating Xbox continues to dominate the PlayStation storefront as 50% of the top 10 games from Xbox. Again, what's new here? What are we trying to discover here, right? What kind of a coping mechanism is it to be like, man, now that our preferred platform, now that our corporate shilling platform that we're trying to shill for 24/7 and come up with these delusions of grandeur, what do we do now? Well, we overhype the fact that Xbox is now a third-party publisher, a full third-party publisher, full third-on public publisher, all that stuff, right? I'm trying to think of fancy words to make this seem more elaborate, make it seem more unique, but it's not. They are just a full-on third-party publisher at this point, as I'm trying to make this the main focal issue here. Why are they still coping at this point in time to elaborate even further that their preferred platform and company is now full-on third-party? Do we see how we keep saying full third-party here? Yes, because that's just the fact of the matter here. But in their mind here, here's the spinning. Well, a third-party publisher is now at the top of the store for PlayStation. Yes, welcome again to being a third-party publisher. That's what happens when your IP, your software, is available on multiple platforms at once. It will sell more than if it was just to your own ecosystem. But again, exclusives matter. Again, you have to have that unique aspect to that ecosystem. That's what draws in people. Whether it sells as much as the others, it's not going to, because again, people are spread out quite a bit, mostly on Nintendo and PlayStation and PC, of course, dividends, stuff like that. But ultimately, it's spread out. So you're going to get that there. You're going to get the income. You're going to get the revenue. You're going to get the hearsay. You're going to get the word of mouth, all that stuff as well. But you do need those exclusives. And this is why Xbox is in the pathway that they are. They, as we stated multiple times before at this point, folks, if you've been following this channel, all eggs, one basket, Game Pass, didn't work out as intended. Here we are, end of story. But again, them full circle trying to make something out of nothing here. Welcome to being third party. Welcome to that. Fantastic. Same thing would happen if PlayStation had their first-party games available everywhere, especially when they're buying up already established popular IPs. Then, of course, that's going to happen. Cough, cough, Call of Duty, cough, cough, Minecraft. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? But again, coping, mechanism, delusion, all that good stuff. But let's continue here. We're not done with Snap Blast. Now he's got another one here. How's he coping even further with his next post? Oh, we have it here. Huge thanks to all the PlayStation players out there who keep buying Call of Duty, Minecraft, Forza, Indiana Jones, Fallout, Doom, and Elder Scrolls, etc. Please continue to keep spending your hard-earned cash on Xbox games and keeping me deep in Game Pass games. Keep up the good work, bro. Again, what did we allude to a few videos ago even? Just a few videos ago even. The narrative has shifted drastically because it was all about exclusives. Exclusives mattered when Xbox had exclusives, but now that they don't, the shifting goalpost and the new narrative is you're funding our Game Pass. News alert, here's an update for you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and that's not going to continually sustain Game Pass forever. If things don't change and the subs don't increase due to inflation, due to tariffs, due to rising costs of AAA and AA and all that stuff, if things don't change in a positive way for Microsoft, that's going to affect Game Pass in the long run. So it's not just PlayStation players buying those. You should be hoping PC players are also buying the games, not relying only on Game Pass to help fund that even further, and etc., etc. But again, another high-end coping mechanism here where it's that narrative has changed. Now exclusives don't matter. It's about funding Game Pass. And again, you could say that till you're blue in the face. Nobody cares. People purchase and play the games they want to play. How that affects you, aka Game Pass, and in the future and your ecosystem is to be determined in the very, very long run, but it has affected it, as you can see, with Xbox going full on third party. Those are the decisions being made. Those are the outcomes due to those actions. I promise you, though, at the end of the day, if somebody wants to buy something they want to buy, they don't care if they're funding another funnel of something where they are oblivious to Game Pass. Trust me, people are not oblivious to Game Pass at this point in time. That's all Xbox fanatics and shills and grifters talk about, and it's still not catching on as it should be, as intended. Simple as that. But let's keep going with the delusion here. So, again, the narrative changed. We got Clute back. He's an idiot, as usual. And I just saved myself 105. I paid Xbox. Xbox paid the developers. Seems like a good transaction. Play your game. Stop telling others whatever the F they should do or should not do. And of course, showing Expedition 33 and Oblivion. And what's funny about this, Clute, is if this is all you kind of peddled your way, if this is all you stated, then I'd be in agreement with you because it doesn't matter. But it kind of does, like I just alluded to. Actions have consequences. Actions have consequences in regards to how you play and partake into said hobby. If it's not catching on in some way, shape, or form, it's going to affect them in the long run. So people should be upfront with them and not lie and say, you know what, Game Pass is here to stay forever. Things are looking good. There's no reason why. They're just doing it out of the goodness of their heart. Microsoft going full on third party. They're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. There's no reason to be fearful of the future. There's no reason to be concerned about the future and where you're investing your time and money. There's nothing like that. They are just, this is where the delusion comes in and creeps in. So, no one should know. I agree. For once, I agree with Clute on the part that stop telling others whatever the F they should do or should not do. It's not about that. For people that are doing it, though, they're just stating, hey, Game Pass is not the way. Hey, if you guys don't buy your games, Game Pass isn't going to sustain you guys for having exclusives in your ecosystem. People are trying to be utmost, including myself, just trying to be honest and let you know the pathway, but you guys sit there and lie to others, lie to yourselves, and then sit there. Don't tell everybody what to do, but you're just telling people what you did and trying to convince them that you should go Game Pass. Because you saved all this money. There's the underlying truth right there. So, again, you're being sneaky, you're being shady. There's no, as much as you want to be truthful in this comment, and towards the end, that's the only truthful part, is don't tell others how to do it. You can tell them what it looks like. You can tell folks the outcome. the trajectory if things don't change, and how that could affect the industry, could affect the ecosystem that they are, again, invested into. But there's a nuance there. It's not you should. I'm not telling anybody on my platform here on this channel to sit there and drop what you're doing on PC or Nintendo or Xbox and go strictly PlayStation. I've never said that. I said PlayStation to me is my preferred platform. I've enjoyed it from day one, what they provide for exclusives and the content and the quality, etc., etc., etc. Do with that information what you will. Do with that information what you will. This is a segment making fun of idiots like this, but I'm not telling anybody what to do either. So a lot of people are not as well, Clute, and you need to understand and discern the differences between the two, unlike yours where you're trying to make a point, but then be like, you know what, but don't let others tell you what to do. But by the way, look how much money I saved. Hint, hint, wink, wink, you should try out Game Pass or be part of that ecosystem. So again, that's what you're trying to do. However, let's continue. We got more here. Christopher Dring, I love this here because he's just making a comment, right? Xbox's lineup for 2024 is looking pretty nice. I agree. Great offerings from that under the umbrella. Whether they bought these studios and didn't create them from the ground up, it's still a nice offering. Some of those games are a little different to the usual Xbox stuff too. I agree as well. Indiana Jones, which, you know, aside from being first person, still a little different. And Hellblade in particular look a little PlayStation-esque. Yeah, they do. They have. And that's what piqued the interest of PlayStation. If they kept these games exclusives going forward, you might be able to do something with a little bit of tweaking here and there, right? And then, of course, obviously, they need to deliver, but good potential there, particularly on PC. Not wrong there as well. Christopher Dring is pretty straightforward. I usually agree with the guy. And then Gaz, of course, all up in his fills. What do you think Indiana Jones, or why do you think Indiana Jones is PlayStation-esque? You can hear the hurt. You can hear the hurt, the heart shattering into a million billion little pieces. And that's a slap to him in the face, because even though he's moved over to PC Elite here, he's got a BONER for Xbox, always have, always will, and a hate BONER for PlayStation, because that's his grift, that's his shilling, and that's what he's just committed to. So regardless of how the outlook is, that's just what he's going with. So you know this hurts him and slaps him in the face. You know exactly what he's talking about. Gaz, and Christopher Dring has probably 10 times the brain cells that you do, if not more. So I wouldn't be questioning what he's stating or why and all that. But I know that essentially hurts you deep down, as per usual, as per you having to jump ship. You didn't even go down with the flagship, much like Risk It for the busted can of biscuits and etc., who at least are going down with it and shilling to the very end, where you're shilling in a different way and hopping over because you couldn't handle the heat, so you got out of the kitchen and you failed like the coward you are. But in addition to this, I just also wanted to share, per VGC post, Video Games Chronicles, Xbox's Indiana Jones is selling fastest on PS5 despite releasing months later, according to Alinea data, right? So according to that data they pulled from that, it is selling more and better, and that is the happenstance that happens when you rely completely on Game Pass, and that's what happens when you have interactions like this with Gaz and Christopher Dring here. You gotta love it. I love every aspect of it, because it just stings. They go to bed just fuming, seething, all that stuff there. But the writing was on the wall, and man, salty and hurt. That's all I can say. But let's keep going here. Matt Piscatella, I do want to state this here when we're talking about. I just wanted this to emphasize what we're talking about in regards to subscription services, what I've talked about in the past and all that as well. But here you go, Matt Piscatella. U.S. spending on a video game subscriptions I'm not sure, had been basically flat for years following 2020 to 2021 growth, only boosted by 12% in Q4 thanks to COD going to Game Pass, which is true. And I was expecting that needle to move exponentially if they were going to have some really good news to follow. But, 12%'s nothing to scoff at in a way, but it's COD. You would think that, hey, I can play COD for an X amount per month. I don't have to buy this thing, blah, blah, blah. there is potential, and it didn't move the needle like I thought it would move it, but here we go. And then, of course, subscriptions are certainly not the future of gaming, although they can continue to be part of it. Correct. So again, you have your shills and frauds and grifters and stuff, the Gaz, the Alex, all the other Xbox shills, right? They sit there and harp on, it's the best value in gaming, blah, blah, blah. Maybe so, but again, how many times have I gone over and stated that the subscription services in general are oversaturated? Back in the day, people want to talk about Blockbuster and other rental places that you could rent your games and movies, and that's just how it was done, and it was fine then. Why not now? Because it's oversaturated. You had some small mom and pop shops, you had some other small rental places as well, depending on the town you're in, but it was different then. It's a little different then in regards to the economy. It was different in regards to how you funded that, and I will tell you, I would 100% be buying my games over renting those, because a lot of those games were not just one and done games. A lot of RPGs back in the day especially, that you just couldn't sit there and you had to continually rent. And once I even thought the thought process of, if I rent this game X amount of times, I might as well have bought it at this point. Like, this is ridiculous. That has not ever changed. It hasn't changed with me. It probably hasn't changed with a lot of others. But again, just something to back up that subscriptions are not the future. They can continue to be with it. You're going to have hits and losses. You're going to see some being canceled. You're going to see some shifting on how those are offered. You're going to see inflated prices, etc., right? It's just, but it's not the end all be all like these shills and grifters and frauds want you to think it is. So just keep that in mind and do what's best for you and what makes the most sense for you. And trust me when I say this, factually, owning will always be better and greater than renting. I promise you that in the long run. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking at research, look at reviews, look at game demos, look at trials, stuff like that before you purchase. If you're just not sure about that purchase and if it's the right thing for you, that's what I expect to do in regards to that. That way you get the most bang for your buck and you have it forever to go back to if you choose to do so, etc., as well, right? But let's go to our next one here. So talk about hurt feelings. We got Colt Eats Wood back once again, as per usual it seems, but here we have him stating, look, viral video lied. He's talking about the infographics one that went over Xbox's initiative here, as far as what they're doing, why they failed, why Game Pass this and that, why they're not selling, etc., I keep saying that this video, but it just is. The list goes on and on. So viral infographic video lied about Xbox failing, Xbox Series console. Of course it did. Now, did it get everything 110% correct? No, there's some liberties there, right? No one's stating that any infographic is going to 100% be right. When you have a content channel that isn't even specified only in the gaming section, they cover, this infographic channel covers everything. So again, do your own research always, of course, but of course, big, bold video, viral video lied. He's heard about it. He's got a damage control. Again, Colt Eastwood did move on to the PC ecosystem, but he's got to sit here and damage control because he also has a hate BONER for PlayStation. Always has, always will, even though he'll come out once in a blue moon and say, no, I don't, blah, 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 bull crap. Receipts are around like crazy. You sit there and shift and lie and all that stuff and grift and all that stuff. But it just doesn't end with these guys. But he's not done. We have another one to follow up here, guys. Another one to follow up with him. He sits here and replying to, oh no, it's Alex, of course. The guy that just dislikes being called a grifter and shill, even though it's true, but he gets hurt very much so. Astro Cyborg forwards all that information over to him. Then he dissects and has to put it in the video. Cry, boo-hoo, woe is me in his banana suit, but couldn't be me. But as a consumer and gamer, we should be more concerned about value and access to games. They aren't worried about how many sales. They want to prove that Game Pass is bad for the industry. For most devs, it has helped. So again, continual damage control. So breaking this down as quick as possible so we just don't harp on this, but I agree to a point with this. As a consumer gamer, we should be more concerned about value and access to games. Yes, to a point. But again, there's a nuance to it, right? There's a nuance to this stuff. It's just not going to work out that way all the time. There's just caveats to it. It's not that black and white. It's not that simple. But they aren't worried about how many sales. They want to prove that Game Pass is bad for the industry. This is incorrect. It's not that it's bad for the industry. It's just that they put their eggs all in one basket, guys. They put it all in there. They thought this would be the end-all be-all. And like we just talked about with Matt Piscatella here, it can continue to be part of the gaming culture. It can be part of how things are consumed, but it's not the end-all be-all. And yes, Game Pass is not great for AAA gaming. The way the inflation is, the way the costs are and rising, it's not the end-all be-all for that as well. It's best for indie devs because they get a payout, they get a buyout, and I've been over this multiple times. It makes sense because they don't know a brand new IP is going to do well and pick up and sell and all that stuff. Case in point, Expedition 33, right? We have plenty of others as well. You never know if Dave the Diver was going to be great. You never know if a lot of these indie games are going to be great right off the bat and if everybody's going to tie to it and stuff like that. Animal Well being part of PlayStation Plus Extra. Nobody knew if that was going to sell super well or be, a cult classic. Hades, as great as it did perform in beta and stuff, and PC, you just never know how it's going to grasp in the real world once you start having to charge for that said game. It could be the best game ever, have the greatest mechanics, have the greatest story. It just may not resonate totally. You never know. So for indie games, absolutely. End of story, full circle. Is it can pay out, and that's totally fine, and I applaud them for that. But again, making it the end-all and be-all, Game Pass is bad to put your AAA exclusives day one on there. I've said that from the beginning of time to now. It hurts sales. It cannibalizes sales. We've been over this. This is why Game Pass is bad. We're not saying Game Pass is bad as a whole. Game Pass has a lot of flaws. That's the problem. And nobody wanted to listen to it, and you guys, especially you, Colt, did not want to listen to it, shut people down, blocked them left and right if they put any semblance of truth to the matter. Do we see where we're coming from here? Super simple to understand, but again, you continue to be in that circle, make everybody feel better, pat everybody on the back, it's going to be okay, it's PlayStation fans, they're the bad guys, and they're trying to downplay, blah, 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 blah. No. Get over it, the coping, the delusion, it's over, it's over. They're full on third party, you guys didn't listen, and this is where we are. Game Pass is bad and has flaws in a lot of ways, and it also has some positives to it, just not outweighing the cons. Do we see and understand how that works? Continue to cope, continue to be salty, continue to damage control, whatever you got to do. But let's go over to our final example here. I just want to touch base with this as well before we make this video a little too long. We do have Legacy Killa HD here. Yes, it is a nightmare scenario if Sony no longer has competition from Xbox. They can and will take advantage of the gaming market. Console and game prices can and will increase with all other AAA game publishers, following Sony's example. Now, I know this is back from February, before we had some other price increases and such, but again, do you see how badly dated this is? It's Nintendo Switch coming up with older hardware, still coming out with a higher premium price that's on the level of a PS4, if that. You know what I mean? So we have that taking the first stance. The next stance, which everybody was shocked about, was Xbox increasing their prices regardless. A US company, regardless of how, they do, of course, get their parts and pieces, not all the time throughout the US, but a US-based company is still being affected by tariffs and stuff, and they were first to increase those prices for the hardware as we're speaking right now, as of the time of this recording. And their games later on this year are also supposed to go up to $80 if you are not, of course, paying through that via Game Pass, right? And who knows, I hear rumblings, of course, that, and again, grain of salt, but rumblings that Game Pass will again increase in price for your monthly sub as well this year. So keep an eye out for that. And then I also hear rumblings it's going to, again, like I alluded to in the last video, that it's also going to increase early Q1 again of 2026. So again, pick your poison kind of thing. And no, this does not exude PlayStation from increasing their prices. That's more than likely soon to follow. That's why I said, even though it's my preferred platform, I'm not trying to sell you guys on stuff, but here you go. Here's the facts, right? PlayStation hasn't increased it. They haven't announced it yet. I would, if you were consider buying a PlayStation, to go ahead and get that ASAP, because if you haven't, odds are those prices are going to also increase. So don't give me the shocked Pikachu face if you're waiting, and then they go ahead and increase that price as well. So again, a lot of caveats in every way, shape, and form, and that's just how it goes. But ultimately, you have choices. Make wise ones, make correct ones, do your research, all that good stuff as well. But ultimately, circling back around to this post, it's not just because lack of competition. Typically that'd be the case, but the shocker is PlayStation was last to do this, and it is what it is. It's not, competition is needed. That's why I always harped on Xbox as well, but it is what it is at this point, and I'm done trying to convince people, because people didn't want to listen with Game Pass, people didn't want to listen to buying their games, and keeping Xbox up afloat correctly in the correct way when things weren't turning the way they should have been, and everybody listened to this, used car salesman, Phil Spencer himself, and it's just the way it is. But guys, just listen, do your research, listen to folks that don't have an agenda, and that's where we're at, right? That being said, we will wrap up the video right here. I appreciate you sticking around for the entirety of it. If you haven't already, definitely leave a like and comment down below. Would love to hear from you. Also, both those things do help out the algorithm. If you haven't, additionally, consider subscribing. That does help out a small content creator like myself. We are moving over to the 3,500 sub goal, so thank you all so much. I appreciate it. And if you appreciate the truth and like having fun like we did today and calling out the ridiculousness, then definitely stick around. We have game reviews, we have streams, we have all sorts of stuff, and I appreciate your guys' company and support. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and just remember, don't be a salty batch. And we'll see y'all next time on the next Xvault gaming video. And until then, take care.